Greetings YouTube, Skill Incarnate bringing you all the latest indie gaming goodness. Welcome back as we look at another indie game. This time I'm checking out a new open world RPG called Aztec Forgotten Gods on PlayStation by Lienzo, another small indie developer. This game was provided by the Indie Collective, a small group of content creators covering new and upcoming video games. Aztec Forgotten Gods takes place in an alternate version of the Aztec civilization. Instead of dying out, it has flourished and grown into a major power thanks to a mysterious technology. The premise for the game was quite original, as I haven't seen a game that showcases Mayan culture before now, and the developer cleverly weaves this into every aspect of the game, such as character clothing, their dialogue, and the architecture of the city. The game also goes for a retro Nintendo 64 style, which I did enjoy, along with the massive scale of a huge futuristic Mayan city that you have the freedom to run, climb and fly through. I'm a big supporter of developers taking risks to create games that are innovative. In fact, this was the main reason I was drawn to the game. However, as I played through the campaign, I did find a number of small issues that did impact my enjoyment of the game. The game begins with a flashback, where an unnamed girl fights her way through an ancient Aztec temple, using the Lightkeeper, a powerful artifact in the form of a prosthetic arm, which gives the user abilities such as absorbing and repelling energy, as well as flight. The battle climaxes with the girl returning the Lightkeeper in order to imprison an unknown evil. As the game cuts back to the present, we find that the Mayan civilization has flourished, thanks to the temple's technology. A gigantic city has been built on the temple ruins, with scientists researching and reverse engineering the temple technology. All is well until Sin, a scientist studying the temple, removes the Lightkeeper with the help of Archly, her daughter. This accidentally releases the evil force again, and it's up to Sin and her daughter Archly, the new owner of the Lightkeeper, to unlock its power as she battles the creatures unleashed by their experiment, as well as coming to grips with her connection to Nant, a god who created the Lightkeeper and is now mentally linked to Archly. The story and the character interaction, particularly between Archly and her mother, is one of the stronger aspects of the game. After the introduction, the player is set free into the city as they learn to use the Lightkeeper. The player can fly through the air, propelling themselves using the Lightkeeper, as well as using the verticality of the city to your advantage by jumping from building to building. The city is littered with jump gates, allowing you to travel at high speed, and you can even hitch a ride by surfing on one of the trains or floating cars as they travel around the city, which is very stylish. The game encourages you to explore, and there are side missions such as races or combat challenges, as well as enemy squads to destroy. Performing these tasks rewards you with tokens that can be exchanged for upgrades to the Lightkeeper, such as increased flight speed, additional health, or ranged attacks, or to purchase different outfits for Archly. I loved soaring through the city like Iron Man, or playing hopscotch across the high-rise buildings. However, the highlight of the game for me was the epic battles against the game's 7 bosses, which are also based on Mayan culture and take some influence from classics like Shadow of the Colossus. These battles take place in arenas like high-rise buildings, a sports stadium, and even at the peak of an active volcano. Aztec was designed with a retro N64 feel in mind, and for the large part it achieves this. However, if you look closer, you'll notice there's some issues with consistency in regards to the graphics. Firstly, as you explore the city, you'll notice there's some NPCs missing faces or have their facial textures heavily blurred. This issue also occurs with the buildings, with some of the textures for walls and floors either stretched or missing entirely. The next issue is with collision detection. I sometimes found myself clipping through walls and floors as I travelled around the city. This problem is especially noticeable with NPCs that would often walk through buildings and even obstruct the player during cutscenes. Next was the camera, which would often reposition automatically during combat, obstructing and disorientating the player, forcing them to manually reposition. This was a major issue during boss battles. Finally, the biggest issue for me was the game controls, which feel very imprecise, especially when you're trying to engage in combat. This resulted in feeling less of a precise action game and more of a button mashing exercise, where I would often avoid using complex moves and just simply spam the attack button. So do I recommend Aztec Forgotten Gods? When I find bugs or issues with the game, I do some research. Speaking with other members of the indie collective largely confirmed the issues that I found. However, I also found that the Steam version of the game is far superior, with sharper graphics, more responsive controls and a far more forgiving camera. Many of the visual issues such as missing or incorrect textures are still present. However, the game was a far better experience on PC, so I'd recommend getting this on Steam if you're looking for a game that lets you unleash your inner superhero. Just be aware that this is a very rough game with a number of issues. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, I'd appreciate a like or a subscribe, as it really helps the channel. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks again to the Indie Game Collective for the review copy of the game. I hope you'll join me next time when we look at another indie game. Until then, Skill Incarnate, out.